Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to some. Welcome to this week's Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. This is our week 14, session 14. My name is Delilah De La Rosa. I am the founder of Depth Worldwide. I'm also the person that's getting the assistance, the guidance in this, from unconventional wisdom on grief and loss. And to my side here is Steven Morrison. He is the master facilitator of Spiritual Workout, founder of Spiritual Workout. That is the main practice that we use here. Sort of the basis of
the source of the
unconventional wisdom, as well as the author of Grief and An Extra Year. An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. I got confused with Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, Stephen? It is a mystery I have finally unpacked after a week and finally have unpacked completely. And I cannot find the copy of the book. I thought I had left it out. I thought I had packed it. I may have left it on a coffee table or something back in LA. I felt like that's not the case, but I don't see it anywhere. So I'm sorry, folks. I usually have a hard copy right in my hands to show you this most excellent book.
Thank you for that. My copy is not in reach at the moment.
Okay. Well, for next time.
We can,
unless I tell you, hey, I found it.
Well, also, in all seriousness, if there's something from it that you want to use or talk about,
right to it. But yeah, we've been extracting lots of stuff from that book over the past 14 weeks, whether we've made note of it or not. But lots of what we have discussed here has come from that book too. So also would like to welcome my mom, who is also one of the focuses of this series. My mother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer back in August of last year and passed away in November 4th of last year. So about 2.5 months of contending with cancer and myself, my brother, my husband, my family, just sort of taking care of her, witnessing, bearing witness to her experience and I guess being present with our own experiences of that whole thing. So yes, welcome, Mommy. And also welcome to Duder, who was one of the subjects of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss. That was Steven's partner, beautiful, loving partner. If you're around, Duder, say hi.
Oh, he's around.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So he is?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I want to talk
about 14 weeks ago when you invoked the book.
He has been around since then?
Nonstop.
Oh my gosh, I want to hear about that. Because I know that's can probably speak to what I want to talk about this week.
And your mom too.
Yes. Okay. I love to hear about that. And as well as any non-physical entities that want to be present, welcome.
Yeah, and it's really a project of, and I know this is what lights up my late partner, not late anymore, but you know what I mean. Just this project of the thinning of the veil and the demystification of what happens when we die. And we keep quasi-joking about this, that it's unconventional to think and talk in terms of, after a death, what is still alive. We talk all day in our lives as humans about souls and the eternal nature of a soul, and then somebody dies and we forget that whole part. And what we're doing here is like, what if we don't forget that part? What if we, think
That's
about
exactly
what's still alive?
what I want to talk about.
All right, then.
So let's get right into it then. All right. Well, last week we talked about pretty much like an update of what had transpired from the previous week after going on a tapping spree.
Right,
and
tapping spree.
going on a tapping spree, coupling that with some candling on the root chakra, and just like this sense of like density, some weight being lifted, where things that I used to experience in an anxious way, such as traveling, any kind of commitments, that like near future commitments, like just the anxiety or dread or whatever that would come up, I wasn't experiencing things in the same way after doing the tapping spree, after the candling stuff. I felt like made room for, like, I was able to get to a place where I'm able now to visualize, like do meditations to visualize. I've been able to connect more with my intentions. As a result, like now listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza's like interviews and meditations are no longer like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a stroke. I feel like I'm having a stroke, you know? And, even this 21-day challenge that I did for trusting the universe, in the beginning of that challenge, there was this exercise about like a meditation where we were to surrender all of our fears to the universe, and like visualizing this box where we're surrendering all of our fears and limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And I just could not do it. Like, I was just like, so much resistance was there. In the beginning days, the starting days of this challenge. But then after going on this tapping spree, and this candling root chakra thing, I think like both of them, it was just like addressing the energy, right? That I feel like were the reasons for why I was able to connect more, let go more, trust more. And while there were some thoughts that I had about, well, I'm also out of the like harder time in my menstrual cycle, or you know what I mean? Like I could have rationalized why I was feeling more relaxed, or more in a receiving mode. I mean, now I'm not like in my biological cycle. I am not in a time where I am supposed to be chill. Like this is usually the time where I get more cranky and more heavy feeling. And I'm still not feeling like that. So happy, thank you, more please.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that mean to you?
I really do feel that I just needed some time, practice, and choices that I've made as to what I would entertain, as to staying with the tapping. You know what I mean? Like just staying with, like, I just needed a little bit more time. I needed to perhaps, at least from what I'm seeing right now, I needed to be in that place where I wasn't connecting, to really understand that I needed to let go of a lot of non-serving energy that I not only have accumulated, from this experience, but just also long-standing resistance,
Yeah.
that I think maybe finally, and also, I need to make note of this. Also, um, making the choice of transmuting, converting this heartache, sadness, grief over the physical loss, of my mom, into inspiration, aka bringing her into the future,
Mm-hmm.
know, aka focusing on the spiritual gain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that making those choices and constantly making those choices.
That right there. So we know choice is bound. It's a concept so that we become more conscious of the choices that we're always making. And when we do that, I just want to underscore something you just said, which is making the choice again and again
Yeah.
and again.
And I've had to do that quite a bit since I've been back here. So being back, and this is not really, we didn't get to really touch on this last week because I was, updating on everything that,
Mm-hmm.
major developments, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that definitely would still come up, well, two things. One, I'm still having some flashbacks of the time of diagnosis and when she was sick and when she ended up departing this plane. And they still tug on my heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I'm purposely going there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I will tell you, like, there are times when I just try to check in and see where does that land on, how do I, where do
Mm-hmm.
I stand on that now? Like, how do I,
Yeah.
just kind of testing myself.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not really so much that. It's just literally like they come up, right? Like I'll just think about it and I'm like, oof. And they still give me that bit of they pull on
And
my
what do
heart.
you do right then with that?
Um, I allow it to come up
Mm-hmm.
and I let myself cry if I feel like crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like mostly this is what I end up, it's like I'll end up crying and I'll do that for a couple of minutes
Mm-hmm.
and then it dissipates, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um and then I go back into the intention of turning this grief into inspiration,
Nice.
right?
Good
Um
practice.
but I give myself that space to cry, right?
Good. Well, that is to me, I hear that as being present to what is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and non-resistance. Here it is. You didn't go fishing for it. Here it is. You're allowing it. You see, it doesn't, that's all it needs. That's all our emotions really need, is just to be acknowledged and not resisted. As soon as we start resisting anything, we start creating more problem.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's the entire problem. So I really appreciate what you're saying there. That's great practice. Be present to what is. Okay, that was it. Well, it's not as strong as it was when it started. And now I have the energy, the wherewithal, and the ability to move into my intention. That's fantastic. That's excellent practice.
Yeah.
The other way that could go, and sometimes does, is wow, the emotion is stronger. It's not as, it doesn't move so quickly.
Mm.
That means that the beliefs that are underneath the emotion are still active. And then in that case, you might do a little, one might do a little
A
more tapping
tapping?
on the
Okay.
belief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because so there's that part, and somewhat I mean pretty much related to that is when I think about the physical loss
Mm-hmm.
and missing her, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Obviously, I mean, people say like, oh, it must be better, you know, you're being out in LA, you know, you have a little bit of distance because, you know, New York is like, oh, and I'm like, actually, my mom was very integrate. Like she was a
Yeah.
very integral part of my life. Like
Yeah.
I don't have, you know, I didn't have a bad relationship with my mother. Like my
Right.
mom was like my homegirl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so integrated in my life. And I happily,
Yes.
you know, like I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, get off me. No, like, yes, mom. Like I wanted to take her out. Like I like to go on dates with her. And you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
she was such an integral part of my life. And not because she was a busybody here. Like it was because, you know, she wasn't nosy. She wasn't like, it
Right.
was, my brother and I wanted her company.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she was also very supportive.
Yeah.
So anytime that my husband and I would go out, you know, for a few months out in LA, she would always like watch my place out here in New York. And, you know, I would always like text her about whatever funny business was happening out there. You know, if I got my eyebrows done, Ma, look at my eyebrows. Like it was that kind of relationship, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like I don't want to say it's like the most unique relationship ever, but it was just, you know, we had such a cool it was such a cool relationship, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and here on earth, right? And and so yeah, when I'm out there, it's not easier. It's, you know, easier in terms of like, oh, I don't think about these things. No, like there's certainly times where I feel like I think about it even more so when I'm out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But out here, it's a different, it's not more or less, it's just different because this is where she lived. And, you know, one of the things that's coming up, and this is like part of, you know, living life in this plane without her physical presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, my dad moving into her apartment of 30 years. And he has already, you know, changed the floors and the all with my and my brother's permission. Like he is so respectful, like so taking things slowly. Like this is not like this is my place, you know, like
Yeah.
this is like the best situation. Although people might think like, wow, your father's moving in there with his girlfriend and like it's like okay. And I'm like, no, but you guys, like unconventional, unconventional, and yet the best scenario, the
Yeah.
best situation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I don't have to think about cleaning out my mom's apartment, which is can be another tug on the, you know, it's like multi-step closure or whatever the fuck you want to call
Yes.
it, you know? And
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I don't have to think about where am I going to store all her stuff. I mean, this is like a place that has 30 years, more than 30 years worth of memories, you know?
Yeah.
But with that, look, I'm not feeling highly activated over, I'm going to go over there on Friday
Okay.
for the first time with the new walls, the new floors. new furniture.
Mm.
Okay. They haven't fully moved in yet, but I'm going to go over there. I'm going to look through some stuff, kind of like a part one of looking through some stuff that I want to take, some stuff that I want to just, have them store there because they have the space.
Which is saying something in New York City.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, apartment. They have the space. And honestly, like 100% truth, I don't feel highly activated. Like, oh my God, I don't know. His girlfriend's gonna cook a meal for us. I don't know if there or if she's gonna bring it, but gonna cook a meal for us. And she's a great cook. She's really good people's, and she's very respectful. She was also with my dad after my mom, like not during, because if it was during, this is not happening, by the way. Everybody, okay? Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's not happening. Because someone asked me today, like, wait, is this like one of the women? And I was like, who do you think I am? My dad had a little bit of a cheating problem, folks. But that's why they weren't together when she passed. They weren't together for years, but they had a somewhat cordial relationship. And my mom wanted for my brother and I to have a good relation with my dad.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so, this inspiration wise feels right. Right? Like it feels right. It felt like a relief when my father was like, hey, is that apartment still available? Could I use it? And I'm like, yes. Oh my God, please,
Yeah. I just want to interrupt for a moment. Say what you mean for people who might not know when you say inspiration wise.
So meaning that when this opportunity came up where, so my dad, my mom lived in this place, this classic 6 Bronx apartment. Okay. Beautiful bones, large. It's like a little house in a building for New York standards. She lived in there for like 30 years. Right. And she basically left that place, to myself and to my brother. I mean, she was like, even though my dad, so they were not technically or officially divorced, but they were like officially separated for like over 20 years, right? My dad was still on the lease, right? And my dad told me that anything that, your mom left and I have my name on it, I don't even see it as mine. I see it as for you guys, And I was like, great, fine. My brother and I do not want to live in this place. And we were thinking that my cousin on my mom's side was going to take over. And we're like, okay, then sure, we'll keep the apartment, keep it in the family. It's a great price. She was living there for 30 years, the rent control, it was a huge place. Let someone in the family take care of it. But my cousin, it didn't work out for her. So I was like, all right, I am not going to like make a decision right now back then, like in December, January, to get rid of the place. So I was kind of paying, even though it was a low rent, I was kind of paying out of pocket and nobody was there. Right. And so, yeah, right. And so, and no one was there. In March, I was just thinking like, okay, come May, I'm thinking I may have to just give up the apartment. Nobody wants it. I'm just going to have to give it up. And I guess I'll just have to deal with all of that, all that comes with that. Right. And I'm like, not ideal, but whatever comes. Right. My dad calls me in late March and was like, hey, is the apartment still available? And I was like, yes, it is. And he was like, you think it's okay if I can, move in there? Like, does nobody want it? He was being very careful, and I was like, oh my God, please. Like, I was hoping that his girlfriend liked the apartment so they could move in there. Right. And what I mean by inspiration wise is that when he said that, yes, listening to inspiration.
It's just part of our practice,
Yes, when
being
he
guided by
said, "Hey, is it okay if I, is it still available? Can I take over the apartment?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolute yes." I felt like it was the answer to my prayers, right? And I even felt that way beforehand. I was like, man, I think I even said it. I was like, if my cousin or my father, those two would be the most ideal people to take over this apartment. Like, I would love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, inspiration wise, all there. And that's why I don't think I'm so activated. I'm not feeling like
So what that concept means in everyday life is just it feels right. It feels right.
feels
The
right.
concept means listen to your feelings. The
And it's
concept
legitimate.
means,
It's profound. Like, it's not this
well, it
like,
never lies. It
yeah,
never ever lies. So when we're living as spiritual beings having human experiences, it is our guidance system, if you will. It is what we choose to listen to. It's the difference between listening to and living in our heads and listening to and living in our hearts. And I just wanted to be clear when Delilah was
yeah.
talking about inspiration wise that we communicated that.
Yes. So inspiration why I think that's the reason why I don't feel so activated or uncomfortable because when you look when you look at it on paper and also in the context of my parents' relationship with each other,
Yes.
my mom, I will say without getting too much in her business, right? But my mom, there was definitely like a lot less than previous years, but there was still some unfinished business with my dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And, I made a note of this last week about the whole thing that came up with the candling about the sadness with men
Right.
that my mother's line, the women in my mother's line have had that really rung true for me.
Yeah, I remember.
Like, it was a layer of the grief in
Yes.
this whole experience, right? And so there's a small part of me, a little small part of me that's kind of like, um, I don't want to, I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word, but just sort of like, recognizing the that history, that context.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's certain things that I'm kind of like, in going into Friday, where I'm like, I want to take away, I want to bring her pots and pans, right? Like I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is I don't know if it's kosher for my father's girlfriend to be using my mom's pots and pans. And look, I know that where she's at right now, well, I don't know 100%, but I feel pretty good about thinking
Mm-hmm.
that where she's at right now, she's not giving a fuck. She's not caring. And I also know here on earth, in this plane, she would have been caring.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not a conflict. I'm gonna move forward as is, you know what I mean? I I guess I'm just not really knowing how to approach that or address that, because it is a little, it's not completely in alignment with the inspiration.
Well,
And it did
you
bring
know,
up a little bit of anxiety this morning when I thought about, like, I got to bring this and this back from the house, and where can I fit it in? Yeah.
so this is all about intention and about listening to inspiration. So, the first thing I would say, just me, you'll know what to do when it's time to do it, even though it's in 2 days.
I did do that. I did.
And just staying aligned when you go in. You might look at the pots and pans and say, oh, they're fine here. And it might
Yeah.
just feel
Okay.
that.
Yes. That's
And
what.
you might look at them and say, yeah, I really do want to have those. You don't have to figure it out now. And
Right.
if you're not sure that day, you can say, I'm still thinking about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
that's the opportunity that I have, the privilege that I have now that my dad is staying
yeah,
here.
you have time and space to just,
Yeah.
And from everything you're saying, he's not going to argue with you about any of it.
No.
Neither is his
He did ask me about the fridge and the washing machine. Remember?
brand new.
I was like, I guess so. Sure. And what did I say, Steven? I said, look, I'm sure that my mom doesn't give a fuck where she's at, but if she does, she can haunt.
Yeah, that could be her project.
If she does, then she can handle it. I guess. I don't know.
They'll call you one day and say, will you get this washer out of here?
Yeah,
It's freaking us out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't really think that's going to be the case. I'm just being playful, but also that is the case, that, like, I'm not going to do anything. You know what I mean?
Again, like with anything, going over there on Friday, it starts with you being fully aligned with you fully aligned with any intentions that you have, and operating from that place, whatever you got to do to get yourself into that zone. But it sounds like, this is it. And if that stuff starts to cause the anxiety, again, we're listening to inspiration. The anxiety is evidence that whatever you're thinking about is out of alignment with you.
Yeah, because I was starting to it was this was like around like 6:30 in the morning. Like, I was in bed and I started, like, thinking about logistically, like, okay, I want to bring back the suitcase and then the things and and I was just like, and it wasn't feeling like a flow. It was feeling like that nervous, anxious energy. And I was like, just relax.
So if you can't move right back into alignment, see what you're believing that's creating the anxiety, the angst.
Yeah, I think that there was a little tiny surface idea. I'm not going to say belief, thought. What's less than a thought? I don't know. A nuance. Right.
A germ of a thought.
Yeah, exactly. A little peanut of a thought. That in some way I'm selling my mom out.
Well, that'll produce those feelings for it. But this is what we mean. Beliefs matter. They
the reason why is because of some of her reactions when she was here in this pain.
Which is also based on something that has nothing to do with you, which is whatever that unfinishedness was between them when she was still here, and that's outside your purview.
It is. And I think, see, it's activating. It is outside my purview. And yet when I was a child, I felt like I was right in the middle of it.
You were, to a large degree, but you're not anymore.
And
there are two ways to look at this.
Keeping, right? Like
Yes, exactly. That's what I was just thinking of. So, but that's not your role here. You're not 5 years old. and you're not unaware of what's happening. So you don't have, this is what happens to all of us. We make these decisions, we learn these things when we're 5 and around then, and then we're a few decades later, and it's like the 5-year-old is living the life and running the show. So we're nipping that in the bud. And there are 2 ways, I think, to look at this. One, it's not your purview, it's theirs. And they'll work it out. However, that has nothing to do with you. And from another perspective, what was I going to say? That as you do your personal work as Delilah in this life, and you as Delilah in this life heal, quote unquote, some of that lineage material, you heal it for the whole line.
I do. And I know my mother wants that.
Yeah.
My mother,
she can be doing the same thing from over there.
Yes, yes.
From a completely different.
Me.
Yes, exactly. So
you know?
it's not your responsibility to heal it for the line. That's just what happens. And why am I even saying that with any confidence? Because that's based on the idea, and I don't even like bringing it up because I'm not good at explaining it, but I trust it, that there's no past and future. It's all happening now anyway. Yeah. That's why we can say that. So you don't have to do more than what comes to you inspiration-wise on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. There may be very little to do. There may be a lot for you to do. And you can do it with her. You can invoke her and ask her to help when you are in that space as you, not as doing it for, everyone who came before you.
Yeah, I feel like that's more of a byproduct.
Anyway.
I feel like it's more of a byproduct.
Exactly.
Of the whole lineage thing.
Yes.
But it's really my self-transformation.
Right. Which is why you don't have to go looking for anything. Just do what comes to you.
What comes up. Exactly. And I feel like that is the case because when I talk about it, when I think about it, like it definitely hits right here in the heart. Like it's, I feel it, it's just like, oof, and, it's very connected again to, when I have those flashbacks, that come up of her with the diagnosis and then, sick. And, I just think about how she emoted during that time and, just the agony, right? Expressions of agony and anguish and stuff. And I've mentioned this in previous sessions where it's like that was so triggering for me, like one of the hardest things, not just because it's like I'm seeing my mom contending with this disease, but like it just brings me back to those years of seeing her anguished and in agony or suffering. And really what's behind it is not just seeing her, but that I couldn't do anything about it.
Well, and this is not an indictment. It's just a perspective that she also had all that at that time because it was previously unprocessed. Which is another way of just reminding you that just like you and me and everyone we know, we all have our stuff. Your mom had her stuff. You have yours. I have mine. Your husband has his, and et cetera, for all 8.3 or 4 billion of us, right? And so this is about, when we talk about the concept of responsibility and taking responsibility, it has a lot to do with understanding what we are and are not responsible for.
Yeah. It's
and so the angst, the more angsty it gets, especially on that subject, stop yourself next time and say, is part of what's going on here my wanting to take responsibility and kind of fix it, or that I wanted to at the time and couldn't? And if that's the case, beliefs matter, they create experience. The belief underneath that then is I, Delilah, am somehow responsible. And that's a carryover, as you've been clear about, from your childhood, where we take on those roles.
And it's very tied to existential angst, in terms of like, if I can't control how people intend, I can't, you know, I'm not the sole creator, I'm a co-creator.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see that as, sometimes, not now any as much anymore,
Yeah.
but just sometimes have seen that as like, if I can't control everything, then I'm fucked,
Right.
essentially. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, then I need to be on defensive mode, because I don't know, I'm going to be blindsided since I can't control everything. And it's like a more profound, like existential type of angst, that like sometimes the more superficial anxieties will come into play, because I don't want to go there. But I
Mm-hmm.
realized that, like, one of my over the past couple of weeks, that one of my soul work assignments is about cultivating more acceptance of that fact, of that
Yes.
truth, like really accepting that. I mean, is it helpful to look at it in this way, that there's no guarantee in life of, like, whether you live or die the next minute? Is it helpful to look at it like that, and having to accept that?
The word guarantee makes me a little nervous. Let me understand more of.
Meaning that, I can intend for, like, we would say, fun, 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 sleep, die. Okay,
Right.
people, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen for scores, for centuries, that that's not how it always goes.
But we also know now, in ways that we didn't before, that we, quote unquote, create our own realities. We know that we're born on purpose for a purpose. We know a lot of themes that we say we're going to go and live a life and experience. We also know every step of the way that we have free choice, free will, and
Yes.
whatever. But what's guaranteed, but law of attraction tells us that what's guaranteed is you put it out there, follow these basic mechanics, it can't not happen. That's why the word law is in there. It's a physical law. Now, where we get tripped up is on the when. Well, he died. Well, so
Uh-huh.
what? He's a spiritual being. He's still doing his thing. He's
Okay.
still, his intentions don't die. Who he is as a soul doesn't die. His quote unquote work doesn't die, but we say it does. So then we create all this fear that we can't, and belief that we can't have what we want because it doesn't happen on our timetable. But here in spiritual workout world, we learn to let go of the timetable, So
So,
this is what happens with, so your mom, my partner, did they, oh, well, they tried to heal themselves and they died anyway.
mhm.
It's not the whole story. It just isn't. We
No.
make it the whole story.
Right,
Conventional wisdom makes it the whole story. We
right.
don't. Does that mean we know the whole story? No, not necessarily.
So you do have a problem with the saying that there's no guarantees.
I understand colloquially what people mean
Yeah,
by
because I
that.
mean, I even get this from people that don't believe in death, like, that we
Mhm.
continue to exist
Yeah,
even in death in this plane, right? Like, I know
right.
people who very much believe this, like, that death doesn't exist,
Hmm.
and will say that to me.
So they're saying nothing's guaranteed about your desire to live, 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 fun, 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 die.
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
Or
good luck with that. It's not a guarantee. To which I would say,
and they don't have that, excuse me, they don't have that attitude. like, good luck with that, girl. No, but they're just like, hun, like our bodies, our human bodies on in this plane, you know, we could get hit by a bus or whatever. I mean,
Right.
like that's
So,
according to our soul's agenda.
so is this guarantee thing, it might be different when we apply it to quote unquote how we will die versus co-creating our life in general.
Yeah, they're definitely not trying to say that we don't have a say in life
Yeah.
or that we're not co-creators.
Right.
What they are saying though is that we don't, at least according our human mind, our human
Yes.
part of a human
Yes.
being
Yes.
does not know exactly when we're going to depart this plane.
Except I'll bet there's been at least one human being tuned in on that level.
Yes. No,
who,
actually not just one, several.
well, exactly.
Yeah.
My point is, if there's one, there can be infinite. So I'm quite sure that it is possible. That's not even the way to say it. Of course, it's possible for a human being to be plugged in enough, aligned enough on that subject to be able to say, this is how I'm going to die when my time comes. And then they
really?
do.
Like how? Not even
And
just
then they
when.
do. Right.
Because I've heard people more say when. Like
Or
they're
the
like,
when.
like they have a knowing
Yes.
they're not going to live past this time.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
they just have this knowing.
Right.
And they're not fussing or fretting about it.
But that's why the word guarantee makes me personally.
Okay, because I didn't know how to work with that because I understood what they were trying to say.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Because I will get anxious about that. I was getting anxious about that. I was just like, oh my God, like, okay, so here's a here's a great example. And I stopped myself. Why? Because of the tapping spree and the candling. My husband and I went to go see Othello with Denzel Washington, Gyllenhaal on Sunday, right? So fun. So great. Loved it. I just got totally captivated by the storytelling. And this is like written in the 1500s. Like, it was just, and I was just like, wow, like I got totally mesmerized. It was so great, right? But check this out. The night before, I was seeing my husband. He was like, tucking himself into bed, and like, I was like talking to him about the next day, how we're gonna go about getting ready and organizing the next day to go to this play. And he was like in bed, like tucking himself in. And I was like, and I just saw him there kind of, like tucked into bed and seeing his like, cute little face.
Little angel face.
Yeah, like seeing him in his like cute little. And it was so interesting because right at that moment where I'm like, oh, like this closeness and bond that I'm feeling with my husband and enthusiasm over what we're going to do the next day, impending doom thoughts starts coming in.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I know, but you'll hear me out. I'm
listening.
It's entertaining now. It's entertaining. Although in those 2 minutes it's not entertaining. But I had this like thought, an impending doom thought come in because I deigned to feel joy and enthusiasm and eagerness of what if there's a terrorist attack in Times Square? And it probably was a good 2-3 minutes of going in and started emoting as if it was happening, because I was seeing him and he looked all tucked in and everything. I was just like, oh my God, what is that? The end of that little spiral was when I thought about that first weekend after my mother passed away, and I had those horror type of nightmares that I never have.
Right.
And one of them was that myself, my husband, and someone else, I'm not sure who it was, were in a theater, and that these crazy people, maniacs, were taking little groups of people from the theater into the dungeon downstairs of the theater to torture them. That was the dream. And so I, in my
Now, are
lovely,
you still talking to him and looking at him, or did you leave the room, or did you
no,
share your impending
I was
doom
looking
with
at
him?
him, and I'm emoting. This is all
Oh,
happening in
right.
my head.
It's all go okay.
And I think he was like talking to me, and I was like, like, like he was like, yeah, da, da, da. And I'm like, you know, and then the thought, the remembering of the that dream, and I was like, oh my God, what if that dream was forecasting what's gonna happen tomorrow? You know, like that we're gonna be like accosted in the play, and and right then when I went there and I connect, you know, like I went to like that dream from the first weekend, you know, that my mother passed away, is when I stopped. And I was like, this is what happens. This is the
So
impending
you
doom.
stopped yourself?
Yeah.
That's
I was like, this
conscious
is the
awareness.
impending doom thoughts. Look, I'm emoting as if it's happening.
Yes.
As if and I'm connecting these dots, these, you know.
Creating more and more and more of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was emoting as if it was actually happening. I'm like, I need to be
that's how you create
this
more of it.
experience into my beautiful dreams, okay, and intentions. Like, I need to be emoting on that, okay. And but I caught myself, and I was like, wait, consciousness, awareness that this is coming in as soon as I am wanting to live well, which is exactly what my mother would have wanted, you know? It's like, live well. I'm like, what am I? Are you serious? And I don't like to go down the logistical, rational route, because that's just feeding my mind, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was just like, I'm not going to, again, choices.
That's what I do. This is choosing on purpose what to believe.
What am I feeding? And then also what made me feel good was the whole thing about, and this is why I wasn't having a rational, because I could have rationalized it, like the likelihood of that happening and da 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 da.
May I ask you what thoughts you changed from impending doom to? What were the actual beliefs?
So the belief was more about, I don't know if it was a belief. Yeah, thoughts. Okay. Because the thought was more about having an awareness of the choices that I'm making.
Okay. So catching yourself, wow, I am choosing on purpose for this moment to be thinking about doom and gloom and
like I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that this is now on purpose.
So again, conscious awareness right there.
Yeah. So I caught that. And then I went into, I think the thing that kind of like nipped it in the bud was that, like, if this were to happen, I'm going to trust that I'll know what to do when it's time to do it.
Thank you. That's a belief right there, which I always encouraging.
That is actually,
I will know what to do when it's time to do it is the antidote to anxiety.
I was able to get there though, Steven, because of the tapping spree.
I get it.
Because of the, you know,
yes,
practicing.
So conscious awareness, I'm going down the impending doom rabbit hole. Don't want to do that. I'm going to, I will know what to do. If disaster strikes when I'm in the theater, belief, I will know what to do when it's time to do it. Therefore, I don't have to think about it anymore. The antidote to anxiety. And all within that is the choice that you, Delilah, made to switch the channel.
Yeah.
Change the channel from 101.9 to 98.7. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness, oh my God, 98.9, this is not I don't like this music. I don't like what they're playing here. I'm going to go somewhere else. You have to have the other place to go to, which she has done and been doing, cultivating those intentions for life is good and glorious and fun and easy and all that stuff. And then on the spot, making the conscious choice again and again to believe something that feels better, to believe something that calms the system feeling wise, listening to inspiration. Wow, that thought feels a whole lot better.
And the thing is that it feels a whole lot better after doing all of this concentrated working out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I couldn't connect to that intention.
A few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, for past couple of months.
Yeah.
When I thought about it, I couldn't connect to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so I definitely feel that I've made room, aligned more with that.
Yes, you
You
clearly have. And
because
that's the practice. There'll be a period of time of like, oh my God, I'm going down the rabbit hole again. Oh, I know what to do. Do. And then one day you're like, wow, I haven't gone down that rabbit hole for a very long time.
yeah.
And that's usually the path that for most of us. Maybe you'll never go down it again. And I hope you don't. But if you do, you know that it's not forever and you know how to get out of it.
Yeah, I was talking to the Peruvian therapist about that, you know, about like, I was like, do you come across people that like will have these thoughts, you know, like that like this is part of their MO is like they just have these thoughts of like impending doom when they go, you know, and he was like, oh yeah, tons of people, but it's not like normal necessarily, you know, where it's just like, oh yeah, sure. He was like, but at the same time, give yourself a lot of compassion, Delilah, because in this day and age, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there, you know, and you have to practice discerning what's anxiety. Yeah, be compassionate.
To yourself as much as anyone else.
Yes, exactly. Be compassionate to yourself, with yourself, because the fact is that in this day and age, you know, we're living in a very active world.
I don't know what it's like for him down there, but for us here, it's just fear all the time. If you're not afraid, you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and you know, he's like, look, there's some things he was like, it's not inappropriate for you to think like this. You know, like it's not inappropriate. I mean, look at the world that we're living in, right? Mm-hmm. You know, of course, like you're going to find a lot of people who are super anxious these days, right? He's like, however, we want to be able to discern what's rational, a rational response, reasonable response to something.
Right. And that's where this listening to inspiration is about discernment.
Yes.
Which thought, which idea feels better.
And he didn't say it in these words, right? He didn't say it, listen to inspiration, but that's exactly what he meant by
embedded in this.
Knowing how to discern between the two.
Right. And the discernment is not going to come from the head. It just won't.
Right. He's like, because like he's like, if I talk to someone who has a little, you know, this like relative fear of flying, you know, that he can work with them and they're like able to receive the help, right? He's like, but somebody who's stuck with like a real, like just an anxiety mode, can't really help. There's nothing that you can say.
Right. Well, and because everything is energy, and when we're anxious and activated and our nervous,
nothing gets through.
All the answers are right there, but that person that's why we have to get to neutral. Just accept everything as it is from that place. And one of my favorite teachings is neutral is actually a positive state, because from the place of neutrality, we have access and the ability then to make choices. When we're
Right.
freaking out, we don't have that ability. There's no choice that we can make
No.
because we're just in freak out mode.
No. Like, I feel like, if I am in genuine fear, like I have a tiger running after me or something
Right.
like that,
Then yeah,
I will know what to do. Like, I will know what to do. Like, we're wired for it.
correct. But we're not wired to stay in it all day, every day.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what a lot
Basically,
of
I'm
us
saying
are
that we're
doing.
wired to know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And we're especially going to be more attuned to that. We're going to tune into that, tap into that even more. So the more neutral we are,
Yes. Yes.
the more we can slow down the brain and just
Well,
be.
I always think of it in terms of, being out in deep, deep water, the ocean or something like it, and can't swim. And so what do? Your hands and your legs and your feet are just going like this. You're treading water. And
Yeah.
all your energy is
Yes.
about surviving. And even though there are lifeboats and everything around, you can't even see them. You can't notice them. You don't have access to them. And then somebody throws a life preserver.
Aligned with the answers.
Correct. And you're not going to be there. You can't get there from that state. Then somebody throws a life preserver. You latch on. You stop all the frenetic activity. You can breathe. You catch your breath. And, here's, 17 rescue boats right there. All right here. Come on aboard. We got you. That we're all right there. But there's no way a person can let it in or see it or notice it or anything like that when they're in that frenetic, anxious, fear-driven, freaking out survival mode. It doesn't work.
So right now, I feel like this session, the theme was choices abound.
I was just going to ask you also if we're hitting the notes you wanted to hit tonight.
Yeah, no, this is it. I think that, and
I just talked over you. You said the theme of tonight is
listen to inspiration, choices abound. Like these two concepts were be present was in there too, but choices abound is like the overarching theme here, because it's like choosing.
Yeah.
Listen to inspiration, listen to inspiration, listen to inspiration. It's, I feel like I've gotten much more emboldened with the tapping, where it's just like I'm feeling like off, beam, go right into tapping, tapping. Like I'm getting back into that mode because, like I mentioned in previous sessions, tapping and breath work and yoga and all these tools that I would totally use before, visualization, meditation, hour and a half, who cares, for some reason they were not working out for me, or it just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't working out for me at that particular time. Like it was sort of backfiring in a way. I don't even know if I want to say it like that, but I'm now able to like get back to it and full force, I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's because I was using those tools in a way to like save my mom, visualize her still in this plane, and it was like I was maybe introducing resistance to what was
and doubt also. Like, do you really get to control that part?
What do you mean doubt about that?
Seeing her the way you wanted to see her, like you don't get to create in her reality that way.
Right.
So if you try to, and then part and parcel of the trying is question, well, is it going to happen or not? And it's all walking down the quote unquote
in my heart. I think what was happening is that in my heart, I knew that she was departing this plane, like in my heart, you know, at a certain point, not from the very beginning.
I know. And then because you don't want to look at that, you just look at all the other things too.
Yeah, it just it got messy, you know.
Yeah, well, of course.
It got messy, and I think that that's what ended up happening, was that I was trying to visualize her in good health and, you know, flowing, and we're gonna do, you know, like trying to go, and then that's where it was like, no, you know, like it just was like, stop
Right.
it, you know, like. So I think it was just some disorganized, messy energy going on there, which made it really feel like it was backfiring, making it harder for
It's
me.
just kind of misapplied.
Exactly. A misapplication.
Yeah.
You know, it was a misapplication. Because now I am not misapplying, and
No, not at all.
and it's working lovely.
Well, and it's obvious from your being, right? You know, you are coming across as much more aligned. And another way to say that is, you know, as who you really are.
Yeah, yeah.
More
And I'm really
empowered.
gung-ho about turning this, what I felt, experienced as something sad for me, you know, heartache, turning it into inspiration, you know, to like live really well. Because I know that's something that I really want in my heart. And I know my mother definitely wants that, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, so this is definitely choices abound. Keep choosing, keep choosing, keep choosing.
Keep listening to your gut.
Keep listening, allowing, giving myself the room, the space, time to listen to.
Yes, well, that's what's required.
Yeah, because I'm definitely tapering the consumption.
Yes.
That now it's much more interactive, much more my actually doing off of inspiration, you know, based off of inspiration, practicing, working things out, applying. Hello, spiritual workout. But I think one of the things though that I like to keep at is the flashbacks that keep coming up, you know.
Well, like I said earlier, when the incident of it that you described and your process of moving through it was, you know, practice-wise spot on. So the only thing to see if it happens again and you can follow the same path again, great. If it happens again and it's a little angstier, a little heavier on some of that stuff, then just look at what you're believing in that moment.
Okay. Like if it stays, yeah. Like if
if it's really foot on the brake, way more than foot on the gas. What you did before was like hover over the brake and be like, no, I can just go foot on the gas.
Yeah.
And we always want to see if we can do that. If we can, great.
Right.
And if we can't, if it's more of a struggle, if that brake is just a little stronger or a lot stronger, then right to believe. What am I believing right now? That's adding up to my foot on the brake. I'm not even sure you'll wind up in that spot again, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I just
I wouldn't go looking for it.
No. I want to be very conscious about that, you know, like looking for it, because I know that there are times when I want to like test.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. You know,
no, I don't think so either.
How am I doing on this? Take the temperature.
Taking the temperature. I don't mind that. You know, I don't mind taking.
But like anything, discernment. What's the intention for taking the temperature? Am I taking the temperature every hour?
No.
No. You know, am I taking it? Wow, I haven't really thought about that for a while. I'm just going to see right now.
Okay, so that's yeah. I felt like
again, that's discernment. That's just you know, listen to hear.
Okay, yeah, because I wanted to get your thoughts on that, like the whole like flashback business and
Mhm.
um, the
Let's
missing
just
of
realize
physical presence.
yes, but when the thought comes, it's coming to help you as part of the whole experience that you're processing. So it's not bad, no
No,
judgment. It
no.
just is. It's here. You let it in. It had its way and kind of left. That's beautiful. That's often how it goes, and
Okay.
that's good practice all the time.
Okay. Yeah, because there'd just be some time, and again, they don't actually last like it's not like they're lasting like half an hour or an hour, not even. It's like a couple of minutes of like,
And
hmm,
and then you get to see your own progress
yeah.
because what you described this evening about that flashback was very different from what you would have described in January.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you get to see that's how this process
The
of
density is not as heavy, right? It's not as dense.
clearly.
Not as dense. I just, yeah, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that because I'm like, I wonder how that will evolve, you know?
Well, it is evolving.
Yeah. It is.
And
It is.
and then if you wonder how it will evolve, move into your intention for this process to begin with. Or
Good.
intentions.
Good. Yeah, because I always, like I said, I go into the spiritual gain. I go into like where she's at right now, not suffering, no agony, no limits. You know what I mean? More powerful, more majestic, more magical, right? And I feel better, right? Like I feel like, yeah.
And that's all you need to know
And I
that
talk to her and I ask her, I'm like, Mommy, let me know that you're all good, like let me like show me, let me know. Like, where I'm just
and are
like,
you getting the response?
um, no, but I'm expecting it.
Are you expecting it in a certain way?
No, I'm just expecting
Well, sometimes the
response.
response could come in a feeling.
Yeah.
You ask the question, you get a feeling of peace,
Yeah.
calm,
Yeah.
right? Then
And I haven't felt that 100%, but
mhm.
I do feel like I think it's a good thing that I'm feeling, and it's promising that I'm feeling like I'm going to receive a response. I just need to
Yes,
be open,
yes.
you know? So while I don't have, or maybe right now I can't see it, I can't receive it because of where I'm at. I don't know, maybe. However, I am expecting a response in a good way, not in a,
Yes.
you
Good. Good.
know, like I feel like it's promising that I'm going to have that two-way communication.
You will. That this is where expectation is a what's a
Positive.
good word? Well, it's a positive yes, as opposed to people say, oh, if you have an expectation and what we're talking about in that realm of expectation is usually about attachment. I've been people use the word expectation, but they really have an attachment to it has to be this way, and then they're disappointed when it isn't. When we set an intention, we expect, because again, and we can end on this, the law of attraction says it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
expectation. We let go of how and when it's going to happen. And this is where everyone gets tripped up, and it's about attachment. And sometimes we use the word expectation there. But
Well, I definitely, I, what we were just talking about here, I heard a Sounds True interview with someone who was so not in this space in terms of vocation or anything like that, but her
mhm,
stepdaughter, who was pregnant at the time, was hit by lightning and died.
mm,
And that completely was like a life changer for this woman and her husband, who was the biological dad. And she was basically talking about how, death doesn't exist, because it was from that experience that she essentially became a medium.
Are you talking about Suzanne Bieselman?
Maybe. I forgot her name, but
Short hair.
I don't know. I just heard it on the podcast.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
But she was like, not the latest interview in Sounds True, but the week before. Yeah. And I just heard it this week, and basically speaking our language here, the unconventional wisdom.
If it's who I'm thinking of, she was like a Navy
herself, and she said Navy
commander. Yeah.
Yes, it was her.
Not in this world. Yeah.
It was her, and I loved it because she was so not part of this world.
Not at all.
Not
and now
at
she is.
all. And her thing is that she wants to make this more mainstream.
Well, exactly. So she's talking about what we're talking about,
Yes.
Although she has the direct communication. So you can't do too much of listening to her right now.
No?
Well, it'll just reinforce everything that you're wanting to do here. You can't listen to her too much. In other words, keep listening to her.
Oh.
What is happening here?
I'm sorry. I didn't follow the sentence structure. And I was like, what do you mean I can't listen to her?
Too much. She's 100% on this subject right now.
No, but you're meaning it like there's not enough of her. Right. Like you're meaning that way.
You can't overdo it.
As opposed to you're saying, don't listen to her too much. That's what I was thinking you were saying. I was like, why? This is like this is our people right now.
We're back.
Yeah. No, okay, got it. Yes, no, I loved it because she was speaking the language. Yeah. And she was saying that, like, I guess the Sounds True person asked her, what about people who witnessed their loved ones, die like in agony or, murdered or whatever? And she was like, once they die, no suffering.
It's done.
Done. And she was like, and it makes it a lot easier for a lot of people when they realize that death doesn't exist.
Well, that's what this is all about. So thank you for another opportunity.
So it was another bit of validation, affirmation of what we're talking about. Not that I needed it, but it was a nice little icing on the cake for this week. So thank you, Steven, once again.
You're welcome.
Oh my God. This has been really, really, really helpful. Like really, really, really helpful. Like I'm pretty, I like the way that I am moving through this experience, and I think that says a lot, because this is, a transition of a loved one experience, which many people, including myself, find it one of the hardest experiences to go through. I mean, it's definitely been the hardest for me, but it's also been, I'm making it so that it's life-changing in a great way.
Well, exactly. And so the collective, the conventional belief has been, among others, it's the hardest thing to do, or one of the hardest things to do, or the most painful, and beliefs like that we are discreating and creating new ones. So
I don't have so much of a problem in saying that, because that's how I've been experiencing it.
Well, right.
However, it's not like how I say in Spanish, no me tumbó. It didn't demolish me.
Right.
It didn't destroy me. I'm not seeing this as a traumatic experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is the most challenging for me, and I'm not going to refute if people say that, if they've gone through it, you know what I mean? And it was challenging for them. Well, it doesn't have to be.
Well, that's what we're starting to change in terms of belief system, and it's
It
not going
doesn't
to happen
have,
overnight.
yeah, and it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be, but if it is, it's fine, and
exactly.
you make it what it's going to be in your life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I've definitely experienced this as the most difficult by far for me, the most challenging,
Mm-hmm.
and yet that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, right?
Correct.
Um,
That's
it
it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right?
That's right.
There were moments of utter devastation, but it wasn't an utterly devastating experience as a whole. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's just,
Yes. And that's why we're here. And you are integrating the experience into your life, which is what living as a spirit, living as a conscious person, living as a spiritual being, having a human experience, trusting that whatever we're experiencing is what we're here to experience. And it's for us. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us.
yeah, and that's what
And
I'm believing that, and I'm living that,
yes, you are.
you
And
know,
I
and
thank
I'm
you.
leading that, leading the way in that for myself.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing all that.
Thank you, Steven. Next week,
All right. I'll be here.
go in. I appreciate that. As always, next week, folks, Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. We are back here, YouTube Live, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. My name, again, Delilah De La Rosa. To my side here, Steven Morrison. You're great. Yeah, so looking forward to everyone coming back next week, checking us out. And let's see what other fun new developments come our way.
Looking forward.
Yeah,
Thank you
give
very
us an
much.
update on first time back in my mom's former
Oh,
apartment
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
and father's current apartment.
Parents. Quite a switch.
Yeah, who was to know that this would be the best case scenario? Because I'm
Right.
telling you, the optics.
I know. I know. I know. All right. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you. Love you.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Love
guys.
you too. Bye for now.